whether it's good news or bad news, what I really love of some of the founders I've invested in is they're really upfront with things. They communicate consistently, whether it's monthly or quarterly, you know what to expect out of them. And they create that rapport, which is really, really important. And so whether it's good news, bad news, things they need help with, they're really upfront, which I think is really, really important. And so the better you are at communicating with your investors as a founder, I think the better your relationship is going to be and the more successful you're likely to be as well.
All right, this is another episode of the Founders Pack Form Your Own Pack podcast. My guest today is John Diaz from Stone Mountain Ventures. How are you doing, John?
Pretty good. How are you doing today? Thank you for having me.
No problem. We're excited to talk to you. So we had a chat just before, and you are I guess, kind of like a single member venture capitalist. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yes, that's correct. I'm a sole GP. I
Oh,
started the
GP.
Stone Mountain Ventures about a year and a half ago. And yeah, I have some advisors alongside the fund that really helped me, but I'm the sole person making the investment decisions for the companies that I work with.
Cool. All right. So I think you're the first person that's done this that we get to talk to. So I'm excited. So I guess for people that don't know you very well, who is John Diaz and how did you decide to start Stone Mountain?
Yeah, of course. So a little bit about me. Went to a very small liberal arts college in San Antonio, Texas. Didn't know a lot about venture, but knew I wanted to be in finance and wanted to be in the private markets. Didn't really know what that meant early on. Started off my career working for a firm called Wellington Management. Really did business development type work for the public markets. Enjoyed the business development aspect, but wanted to be more in the private space. Then I found what I call kind of the backdoor entrance into the private space. I worked for a large private equity firm called Bain Capital doing biz development and business development ops. Here, I worked really closely with executives and the deal team to cover consumer and healthcare. Really, really enjoyed that. But again, wanted to move deeper in my career and move downstream to start, a venture capital fund and work really closely with founders. And so I took the leap after a couple of years at Bain Capital and raised about $1.3 million thus far to invest in healthcare and consumer companies. And specifically within healthcare, we like to invest in mental health, as that's a big part of our thesis.
Very interesting. And that's actually jogging some people that I should introduce you to. So we'll make sure that we connect you with some people
Awesome. I
afterwards
appreciate
that
that.
are entrepreneurs. All right. So now you mentioned that there was a story behind the name of the company. What was that story?
Yeah, of course. So I always like to get really personal when I discuss kind of my history with people. And, I'm someone when I was younger, I struggled with anxiety and depression a lot. And that's why I invest in a lot of healthcare, specifically mental health founders. By the time I reached high school, I had attended 6 different schools because of some of the issues I had. But one of the most prominent schools I attended was Stone Mountain Boarding School. It was a school for kids who really struggle with anxiety and depression and really those sorts of issues. And that school really revolutionized and changed my life and kind of put me on a path of that I never really thought I'd be on. And so when I was thinking through names, thinking about fun names, I wanted to make it something meaningful and something that really resonated with me. And I thought, you know what, it's an easy pick for me. It's something that really changed my life. And I want to invest in healthcare, specifically mental health companies. I want to be able to relate to the founders, and it relates really great to my personal story. So that's how I came up with the name.
That's incredible. That's a great story. All right. And then as far as, what you're investing in, what sort of companies, and is there one particular sector or company that you're excited about?
Yeah, so really, as I mentioned, we do a lot of mental health investing. I really like the area as a whole, but one company that I'm excited about that I've invested in is called Mood Health. They're a telehealth platform that's been growing really rapidly, invested about a year ago. Really strong founder who has what I call the opposite of what a lot of founders have, which is kind of like ADD, where they focus on so many things at once. He's really hyper focused on the business. So that's been really successful, and I'm really proud of that so far.
And it's called Mood. Do I know
Mood
that?
Health. There's definitely a smaller competitor to places like Cerebral and things like that. But yeah, it's a
Okay.
smaller competitor, but definitely growing really quickly.
That's not Mood Connect with Amy, is it?
No, but that's also a portfolio
I was
company
like,
of ours.
is it really? Oh,
Yes,
great.
it is.
Okay.
So I worked with
Yeah.
Amy for a little bit.
Amy is pitched on, I think she might have actually pitched on our demo day.
Oh, that's really exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously speak to her quite consistently.
Small world. All right. So if you had only one piece of advice for founders out there, what would that advice be?
Yeah, so I think one piece of advice that I have is I think you always get the traditional advice, but one thing that I think is a little bit different is communication. So whether it's good news or bad news, what I really love of some of the founders I've invested in is they're really upfront with things. They communicate consistently, whether it's monthly or quarterly, you know what to expect out of them, and they create that rapport, which is really, really important. And so Whether it's good news, bad news, things they need help with, they're really upfront, which I think is really, really important. And so the better you are at communicating with your investors as a founder, I think the better your relationship is going to be and the more successful you're likely to be as well.
I think that's the first time we've had that advice, so that's excellent.
Awesome.
All right, so what has the role of either partnerships or community been in your success and growth so far?
Yeah, so it's been huge. When I started out in venture, I didn't know a ton of people. So I had to do a lot of outreach, a lot of networking. And so the community has really been huge in my development thus far. And so really just networking with people who have lent a hand has been really, really important to me. And so that's why I try and do that as well. Whenever people reach out, willing to take the phone call, willing to introduce them to other folks, because I think it's super, super important.
That is terrific to hear. All right, what is next, I guess, for Stone Mountain, and who is a good connection for you? Who would you like to meet?
Yeah, of course. So for me, in terms of, just I'll answer the second question first. In terms of people I like to
Sure.
meet, honestly, I'm very open. I just love to meet other VCs, specifically emerging managers. I know there's so many out there, and so I love connecting with other emerging VCs, whether they're raising a micro of $1 million or $15 million for their first fund, just because you really get to learn insights, the struggles you're going with, and how to meet with LPs and things like that. We're still deploying capital. We have a little bit left to deploy, so looking for a few more investments. And then we're going to really switch to portfolio management and really try and help our founders scale and grow and be there for what they need. And then hopefully, if things go well, we're going to look for raising a second fund.
That's amazing. Well, anything we can do to amplify the people that you have invested in, we're willing to do that. We obviously have our winner takes all pitch events coming up on Stonks that I mentioned to you. So maybe we can even partner on one of the months if that works out. Otherwise, I'm happy to look at any of your founders for those events. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, John?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is through email. My email is john@stonemountainventures.com. It's also on my LinkedIn, very public, so people can feel free to email me. I'm pretty responsive there, and I'd be happy to chat with anyone.
Amazing. All right. The final thing is, as you know, when we have interesting people on the Founders Pack podcast, we like you to nominate other interesting people that are either founders or investors in scalable ventures. So who would you, John, like to nominate and make an introduction to that we can talk to in the future?
Yeah, so there's an individual I know named Erica Wenger. She's really successful in venture capital. She's worked for a few firms, and I know she's working on some interesting projects right now, and she's works really closely with founders. So she's definitely someone I'd be happy to introduce you to, and I think she'd be an excellent guest on your podcast.
Amazing. All right, Erica, you have been nominated as a future guest by John. We will accept that introduction and we're excited to meet you. And speaking of intros, I will also like to invite you to join Intros, which we've launched, which is the automated weekly introductions between Founders Pack members and that are typically founders or investors. So hopefully that helps expand your network as well, John.
Awesome. I really appreciate it.
All right, John, thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to following your journey.
Awesome. Thank you as well. Have a good one.